There are some things in life you just don't talk about. Things you keep locked up inside because saying them out loud makes them too real. For 40 years, I kept quiet. I smiled at family gatherings. I nodded when people said how lucky I was. I played the part everyone expected me to play. But I'm 72 years old now, and I've decided something. I've decided that the truth matters more than keeping up appearances. So today, I'm going to tell you what I've never told anyone. Not my children, not my closest friends, not even my sister, who knows me better than anyone. This is the truth about my marriage. And maybe, just maybe, my story will help someone out there who's sitting in silence like I did for so many years. My name is Margaret. I grew up in a small town in Ohio in the 1950s. Back then, life was simple in some ways, and complicated in others. We didn't have much, but we had each other. My mama used to say that a woman's greatest achievement was finding a good man and building a happy home. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? That's what every woman around me believed too. I met Richard when I was 19 years old. He was 23, tall, handsome, with dark hair that fell just right across his forehead. He worked at the steel mill with my daddy, and one Sunday after church, Daddy brought him home for dinner. I remember wearing my yellow dress that day, the one with the little white flowers. I remember how Richard looked at me across the table, like I was something special. We courted for 8 months. He'd take me to the movies on Friday nights, hold my hand during walks through town, bring me flowers he'd picked from his mama's garden. Everyone said we were perfect together. And I thought so too. I really did. We got married in June of 1972. I was 20 years old, wearing my mama's wedding dress that she'd altered to fit me. The church was full of people, the sun was shining through the stained glass windows, and when Richard said, "I do," I felt like the luckiest girl in the world. The first year was good. We rented a little apartment above the bakery on Main Street. It smelled like fresh bread every morning. Richard would leave for work at 6, come home at 4, and I'd have dinner waiting. We'd eat together, talk about our days, fall asleep holding hands. It was simple. It was what I'd always wanted. But somewhere around our second anniversary, things started to change. Richard started coming home later. He'd say there was overtime at the mill, extra shifts he needed to take. The money was good, so I didn't question it. But then the late nights became later, and the overtime checks didn't match the hours he claimed to be working. I remember the first time I smelled perfume on his collar. It was a Tuesday night in October. He came home at 11:30, and when he kissed my cheek, I caught it. Something floral and sweet. Not my perfume. I didn't say anything. I went to the bedroom and I cried into my pillow so he wouldn't hear. The next morning, I convinced myself I'd imagined it, because that's what you do when the truth is too painful to face. You make excuses. You tell yourself stories that make it easier to sleep at night. But it happened again and again. Different perfumes, different excuses, different lies that I pretended to believe. By our 5th anniversary, I knew. Deep in my bones, I knew Richard was being unfaithful. But I didn't leave. You want to know why? Because I was ashamed. Because I thought if people found out, they'd blame me. They'd say I wasn't pretty enough, wasn't loving enough, wasn't woman enough to keep my husband satisfied. So I stayed quiet. I got pregnant with our first child when I was 26. Sarah came into the world screaming and perfect, and I thought maybe this would change things. Maybe becoming a father would bring Richard back to me. And for a little while, it did. He was attentive, loving, present. I let myself believe we'd turned a corner. But 3 months after Sarah was born, the late nights started again. Then came Michael 2 years later, and then Katie 3 years after that. 3 beautiful children who deserved a happy home, and I gave them one. On the surface, I packed their lunches, attended their school plays, kissed their scraped knees, read them bedtime stories. I was the perfect mother. But inside, I was dying a little more each day. Richard wasn't cruel. He never hit me, never screamed at me, never called me names. In fact, to everyone else, he was a wonderful husband. He provided for his family, showed up to church on Sundays, coached Michael's Little League team, walked Katie down the aisle at her wedding. But he was living 2 lives, and I was living half of one. I found out about the first woman when Sarah was 10. Her name was Linda, and she worked at the diner on Route 40. Someone saw them together and told my cousin, and my cousin told me. I confronted Richard that night after the kids were asleep. He didn't deny it. He just looked at me with these tired eyes and said, "Margaret, it doesn't mean anything. You're my wife. You're the mother of my children. That's what matters." Like I was supposed to be grateful for that. Like being his wife was a participation trophy. I asked him to stop. He said he would, and maybe he did for a while. But there were others over the years. I'm sure of it. I stopped asking, stopped looking, stopped caring in some ways. I just existed. People ask me now why I didn't leave, and it's hard to explain if you weren't a woman in that time, in that place, with those expectations. Divorce was shameful. It was failure. It meant you couldn't hold your family together. Plus, I had 3 kids to think about. No college degree, no work experience, no money of my own. Where would I go? How would I support them? Richard made sure I always had what I needed for the house, but I had no access to our accounts, no understanding of our finances. I was trapped in comfort. But more than that, I was trapped by my own fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being judged, fear of admitting that the life I'd built was a beautiful lie. So I stayed. For 40 years, I stayed. I threw myself into being a mother, into being a grandmother when that time came. I volunteered at church, joined book clubs, planted gardens, baked cookies for every school function. I stayed so busy that I didn't have to think about the emptiness in my marriage. Richard and I became roommates who shared a last name. We slept in the same bed but lived in different worlds. We'd have conversations about the weather, about the grandkids, about what needed fixing around the house. But we never talked about us. There was no us to talk about. He died 2 years ago. Heart attack, sudden and quick. He was 73 years old. At his funeral, woman after woman came up to me and said how lucky I'd been to have such a devoted husband, how rare it was to have a love that lasted a lifetime. I smiled and thanked them, because that's what you do. But when I got home that night and walked into our empty house, I sat down at the kitchen table and I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Relief. And then I felt guilty for feeling relieved. It's taken me 2 years to sort through everything. The house, the finances, the memories. Going through Richard's things, I found evidence of a life I'd suspected but never fully knew. Letters, receipts, photographs of him with women I didn't recognize. A whole secret world he kept for me. And you know what the hardest part was? Realizing that I'd given him 40 years of my life, and he'd never really given me his heart in return. I wasted so much time waiting for him to change, waiting for him to choose me, waiting for our marriage to become what I dreamed it would be on that sunny June day when I was 20 years old in my mama's wedding dress. But here's what I've learned. And this is what I want you to hear if you're listening to this today. You cannot love someone into loving you back. You cannot sacrifice yourself into being valued. You cannot stay quiet and hope things will get better on their own. I know there are women out there right now sitting in marriages that look perfect from the outside, but feel empty on the inside. Women who are making excuses for men they don't deserve them. Women who are staying because they're scared or ashamed, or because they think it's too late to start over. I'm here to tell you, it's never too late. I'm 72 years old, and for the first time in my adult life, I'm learning who I am outside of being someone's wife. I'm traveling to places Richard never wanted to go. I'm reading books he would have mocked. I'm having conversations with friends that go deeper than surface pleasantries. I'm living. And yes, I wish I'd done it sooner. I wish I'd had the courage to leave when I first knew the truth. I wish I'd shown my daughters that it's okay to demand respect, to expect faithfulness, to leave situations that diminish you. But I didn't know then what I know now. I thought staying was strength. I thought sacrifice was love. I thought keeping the family together mattered more than keeping myself whole. I was wrong. If you're in a relationship where you're constantly giving and never receiving, where you're making yourself smaller so someone else can feel bigger, where you're hiding the truth from everyone, including yourself, please hear me. Your life is too precious to spend it being half-loved. You deserve someone who chooses you every day, who doesn't make you question your worth, who doesn't keep secrets or live double lives, who sees you, really sees you, and loves what they see.